Queen sat on her throne made of black stone. She had ruled the empire for 300 years. Her body was tall and covered in hard shell like an insect. She had 4 eyes that glowed soft yellow in the dark throne room. Her 2 arms ended in sharp claws, and her voice made a clicking sound when she spoke. They had conquered 47 star systems. Thousands of planets bowed before. Billions of creatures paid tribute to her empire. She had never lost a war. She had never known fear. Today, her advisors stood before her with nervous faces. General, her most trusted military commander, held a data pad in his shaking claws. "Speak," commanded. "Why do you waste my time with this meeting?" General stepped forward. His shell was with age and scars covered his body from many battles. "My queen, we have received reports about the mining colony on 442b. It is a small moon with valuable minerals. We plan to take it." "Then take it. Why do you need my permission for such a small matter?" The general looked at the floor. "There is a complication, my queen. The colony has a human." The throne room went silent. The mandibles clicked together slowly. Then she laughed. The sound echoed off the walls like breaking glass. "A human," she repeated. "You come to me, shaking like children because of a human." "My queen, the stories say." "The stories are lies," stood from her throne. She was 3 meters tall, and her shadow fell over her advisors like a dark blanket. "I have heard these fairy tales since I was young. Humans are monsters who cannot die. Humans are warriors who feel no pain. Humans once destroyed an entire fleet with 1 ship." She walked down the steps toward her general. "Do you believe in children's stories?" The general kept his eyes down. "The merchant ships report strange things, my queen. They say humans come from a death world, a planet where everything tries to kill everything else. They say humans learn to survive by becoming the most dangerous thing on their world. Merchants are cowards and liars. They create these stories to explain why they lose ships to pirates." Grabbed the data pad from his hands. She looked at the information about the colony. 10,000 workers, mostly citizens and some alien traders, mining equipment and basic defenses, and 1 human, a retired soldier named working as a security guard. "1 human," said softly. "1 old human with no army, no weapons, no ship, and you are afraid." "I am not afraid, my queen. I am careful, the stories." "Tell me these stories, then. Entertain me with your myths." Swallowed hard. "They say a human soldier once held a mountain pass against 3,000 warriors. He fought for 2 days without sleep, without food, without stopping. When reinforcements arrived, they found him standing on a pile of bodies, still holding his weapon." His eyes narrowed. "Impossible." "They say humans do not surrender. Even when they are beaten, even when they are dying, they keep fighting. They call it spite. They would rather die than admit defeat. Every species fights when cornered." "Not like humans, my queen." Finally looked up. His old eyes held something had never seen in him before, real fear. "Other species fight to live. Humans fight to make their enemies die. There is a difference." Threw the data pad back at him. "Enough. I will hear no more of this nonsense. You will send 10,000 warriors to take the colony. You will capture or kill everyone who resists. And you will bring me this human, alive if possible. I want to see this legendary monster with my own eyes." "Yes, my queen." Anne returned to her throne and sat down. "If you fail because you were too afraid of stories, I will feed you to the pit beasts myself." The general bowed low and left the throne room with the other advisors. Sat alone in the darkness, thinking. She did not believe in human legends. She had built her empire on facts and strength, not fear and superstition. But something bothered her, a small feeling in her chest like a cold stone. They had conquered many species. Some were strong, some were clever, some had advanced technology, but none of them inspired stories like humans did. No one whispered about the in dark corners. No one warned their children about the moth people of Sector 9. Only humans had become legends. Only humans made hardened warriors nervous. Push the feeling away. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most species had never seen one. That was why the stories grew so wild. People feared what they did not know. She would show her empire the truth. She would capture this human and display him to her people. They would see that humans were just flesh and blood like any other creature. They could be hurt. They could be killed. They could be conquered. The invasion would begin in 3 days. 10,000 warriors against one retired soldier. Smiled in the darkness. This would be the easiest victory of her long reign. She had no idea how wrong she was. Far away, on a small moon orbiting a gas giant, Sargent finished his patrol of the mining colony. He was 53 years old. His black hair had turned at the edges. His body carried scars from battles he rarely talked about. He walked with a slight limp from an old injury that never fully healed. He stopped at a window and looked out at the stars. His reflection stared back at him, just an ordinary man with tired eyes and rough hands. But deep inside him, something old and dangerous still lived. Something that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and wars, through plagues and disasters, through everything the universe had thrown at them. Did not know that an army was coming for him, but when they arrived, they would learn why the galaxy told stories about his kind. They would learn why humans were never just legends. The warships came down from the sky like a swarm of metal insects. There were 20 ships, each one carrying 500 warriors. Commander watched from the lead ship as the colony grew larger on his screen. He was young and hungry for glory. The Queen had chosen him for this mission, and he would not fail her. All units prepare for landing, he ordered. Secure the main gates first. Kill anyone who fights back. The ships landed in a circle around the colony. Dust flew everywhere as the engines powered down. Doors opened and warriors poured out, their weapons ready. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of legs clicking on the rocky ground. The colony's defenses were weak. A few automatic guns on the walls started firing, but the shields blocked every shot. Within minutes, the guns were destroyed. The main gate fell with a single blast from a plasma cannon. Smiled as his forces entered the colony. This was too easy. He wondered why the Queen had sent so many warriors for such a simple job. Perhaps she wanted to make a statement. Perhaps she wanted the galaxy to see power. The colonists ran and screamed. Workers dropped their tools and hid in buildings. Families grabbed their children and fled to the inner sections. Let them go. They were not his targets. He was looking for one thing only: the human. His scouts reported that the security office was in the center of the colony. That was where the human worked. Led his personal squad of 50 warriors toward it. They moved through empty streets and past abandoned shops. Everything was silent except for the sound of feet on metal floors. Then the lights went out. Every light in the colony died at the same moment. The screens went black. The machines stopped humming. Even the emergency systems failed. They were left in complete darkness. Night Vision ordered. His warriors activated their bioluminescent organs. Soft blue light glowed from their shells, showing the corridor ahead. It was empty. Power failure, one of his officers said. Maybe we damaged something when we broke through the gate. Did not answer. Something felt wrong. The colony had backup generators. They should have started automatically, unless someone had turned them off on purpose. Squad 7, report your position, he said into his communicator. No answer. Squad 7, respond. Silence. Checked his tactical display. The screen showed all his forces as small dots spread across the colony. Squad 7 had been clearing the eastern section. 12 warriors. Their dots had disappeared. Squad 7 is gone from the system, his officer reported nervously. No distress signal, no weapon discharge, they just vanished. Find them now. But before anyone could move, the screaming started. It came from somewhere ahead. Screams, the sound of warriors dying, ran toward the noise with his squad following. They turned a corner and stopped. Bodies, 8 warriors lay on the ground in pools of blue blood. Their armor had been cut open. Their weapons lay unused beside them. They had died so fast that none of them had fired a single shot. Standing among them was the human. Had seen pictures of humans before, but seeing one in person was different. The creature was small, barely half his height. It had soft skin and strange round eyes. It wore simple work clothes covered in blue blood. In one hand, it held a knife that dripped onto the floor. The human looked at and his 50 warriors. It did not run. It did not beg. It just stood there breathing calmly. Sergeant said, "You are outnumbered and surrounded. Drop your weapon and surrender." The human tilted his head slightly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and steady. "You have invaded this colony. You have frightened innocent people. You have brought war to a place of peace. We have brought order, the Empire." "I don't care about your empire." The human took a step forward. 50 weapons pointed at him, but he did not seem to notice. "There are 6,000 civilians in this colony, families, children. If you want them, you have to go through me." Laughed, the sound echoed in the dark corridor. "You are one creature against 10,000. What can you possibly do?" The human smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something dangerous that had been waiting for this moment. "Let me show you." He moved. Had never seen anything move that fast. 1 second the human was standing still. The next second he was among the squad, his knife flashing. Warriors fell before they could react. Shots fired but hit nothing. Bodies dropped one after another. Raised his weapon, but a hand grabbed his arm and twisted. Pain exploded through his body. He fell to his knees as the human leaned close to his face. "Tell your queen," whispered. "Tell her that humans are not legends. We are worse. We are real." Then darkness took, and he knew nothing more. When he woke up, he was alone. His squad was dead around him. His communicator was broken. His weapon was gone. He crawled through the dark corridors toward the exit. Around him, he could hear the sounds of battle, screams, explosions. His army was fighting something it could not see, could not catch, could not stop. One human against 10,000 warriors. And the human was winning. Queen watched the reports come in with growing horror. Her throne room had become a war room. Screens covered every wall, showing footage from the colony. Advisors ran back and forth with data pads. Generals shouted orders into communicators. And everywhere the same news: death, failure, disaster. 417 confirmed kills, my queen, General reported. His voice was hollow. All by one enemy. We have lost contact with 3 entire battalions. Commander is alive but injured. He is being evacuated now. Said nothing. She stared at the main screen where security footage played on a loop. The footage showed the human moving through her army like a ghost. He appeared from shadows, killed, and vanished again. He used the colony itself as a weapon. He collapsed tunnels. He opened airlocks. He released toxic gases into closed rooms. But the worst footage showed him in direct combat. Watched as the human faced a squad of 20 warriors. Her soldiers were bigger, stronger, better armed. They had trained for years. They had conquered worlds. The human killed them all in less than a minute. He moved in ways that should not be possible. He bent and twisted to avoid plasma bolts. He used fallen bodies as shields. His knife found gaps in armor that even soldiers did not know existed. And through it all, his face never changed. No fear, no anger, just cold focus. Hal whispered, "How is this possible?" Advisor stepped forward. He was the Queen's chief scientist, an old with pale shell and dim eyes, but his mind was sharp as ever. "I have studied everything we know about humans, my Queen. I believe I understand now why they are so dangerous. Explain. Activated a holographic display. A blue planet appeared, spinning slowly. This is Earth, the human. We call it a Class 5 death world. I know this. They say everything there is dangerous. Not just dangerous, my queen. Competitive. Zoomed in on the planet, showing forests and oceans and mountains. On most worlds, evolution creates balance. Species find their place and stay there, but Earth is different. Earth is every creature there evolved to fight, to kill, to survive at any cost. The planet itself is hostile. Extreme temperatures, natural disasters, diseases that mutate faster than medicine can cure them. And humans. Humans are the winners. Pulled up an image of a primitive human, thin and small compared to other creatures. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. By all logic, they should have died millions of years ago. But they did not die. They survived. And then they conquered. How they are so weak. Their bodies are weak. Their minds are not. Showed brain scans comparing humans to other species. The human brain can imagine things that do not exist. They can plan years into the future. They can learn from mistakes and change their behavior. And most importantly, they can refuse to give up. Leaned forward. What do you mean? Humans are what scientists call persistence predators. In ancient times, they did not hunt like other predators. They did not chase their prey and catch it quickly. Instead, they followed their prey for days, walking, never stopping, never resting. Their prey would run and escape. Then the humans would appear again. The prey would run again, and the humans would follow again. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. Then the humans would kill it. They walked their prey to death. Yes, my queen, and they still carry this ability. Their bodies are designed for endurance. They can keep going long after other species would fall. They heal from injuries that would kill us. They ignore pain that would stop anyone else. His voice dropped lower. And when they are wounded, when they are cornered, when they should surrender, they become more dangerous, not less. Why? They have a chemical in their bodies called adrenaline. It floods their system when they are in danger. It makes them faster, stronger, and immune to pain. Combined with their psychological trait called spite, it creates something terrifying. Spite. The desire to hurt your enemy even if it costs you everything, even if you die. A human would rather drag you to death with them than let you win. Turned off the display. My queen, the stories we heard were not exaggerations. They were warnings. Humans are not monsters because they were born strong. They are monsters because they refuse to be weak, no matter what. Sat in silence for a long moment. On the screens around her, her army continued to die. 400 had become 500. The human was still fighting. His body was covered in wounds now. Plasma burns, cuts, broken bones, but he did not stop. He did not slow down. If anything, he was getting faster. Recall the invasion force, said quietly. Every advisor in the room turned to stare at her. My queen stepped forward. We still have 9,000 warriors if we overwhelm him. He has killed 500 of our best soldiers while wounded and using a knife. How many more will die before we stop him? 1,000, 2,000, all of them. Claws dug into her throne. And this is one human, one old, retired human. Imagine facing an army of them. Imagine facing young ones, trained ones, angry ones. She stood from her throne. Her body was shaking, but not from cold. Recall the forces, now, and prepare my personal shuttle. Where are you going, my queen? Looked at the screen where Sergeant stood alone in a corridor, surrounded by the bodies of her warriors. Blood dripped from his face, but his eyes were steady. I am going to meet with a legend. The colony's central plaza was quiet when Queen's shuttle landed. Her guards had cleared the area. Bodies had been removed, but the blood stains on the ground told the story of what had happened here. Stepped out of her shuttle and looked around. The plaza was circular, with buildings rising on all sides. Broken windows and bullet holes covered the walls. Smoke drifted from somewhere in the distance. The invasion had turned this peaceful place into a battlefield. And standing in the center of the plaza was the human. Sergeant waited alone. His clothes were torn and stained with blood. His left arm hung at a strange angle, probably broken. A rough bandage covered a burn on his shoulder. Cuts marked his face and hands. He looked like he should be dead. But he was standing, and his eyes were clear and alert. 20 guards surrounded as she walked toward him. Each guard carried the best weapons in the Empire. Each one would die to protect their queen. But notice something as they approached the human. Her guards were afraid. These warriors who had conquered worlds could not hide their fear of this small, wounded creature. Stopped 3 meters from the human. Up close, she could see the details of his face. His skin was rough and his eyes were dark brown, almost black. He was breathing slowly, each breath controlled and steady despite his injuries. Sergeant said, "I am Queen of the Empire." The human nodded slightly. "I know who you are. You killed 417 of my warriors." 432. His voice was calm, like he was discussing the weather. "A few more died after you started counting." His mandibles clicked. She was not used to being corrected. "You understand that I could have you killed right now. My guards would destroy you before you took a single step." Maybe, looked at the guards around them. Maybe not want to find out. The guards shifted nervously, raised a claw to stop them from acting. "I did not come here to kill you," she said. "I came to talk." "Talk then." Studied the human carefully. She had expected anger. She had expected threats and demands. Instead, she found only patience. This creature had just fought an army alone. He was wounded and exhausted. Yet he stood before the ruler of 47 star systems with no fear at all. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you fight? You could have hidden, you could have escaped. You owe nothing to these colonists." Was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. "When I was young, I made a promise. I promised that I would protect people who could not protect themselves. I promised that I would never let evil win if I could stop it." He looked directly at its 4 eyes. "These colonists are miners and workers. They have families, children. They are not soldiers. They cannot fight your army, so I fight for them. Even if it kills you." "Yes." Tilted her head. "You humans are strange. You value the lives of strangers so highly that you would die for them. Why?" "Because that is what makes us human." His expression did not change. "We are not strong like your kind. We have no armor, no claws, no natural weapons, but we have each other. We survived our death world by working together, by protecting each other, by refusing to let anyone fall behind. It is in our blood, in our bones. We cannot be what we are without it." A beautiful philosophy, but philosophy does not win wars. No, it does not. Reached slowly into his pocket. Every guard aimed their weapon at him. He pulled out a small device, no bigger than his thumb. "This is a quantum beacon. One press of this button and Earth receives a distress signal. Within 3 days, human ships will be here. I have 10,000 warships. And we have 8 billion people." Held the beacon loosely in his hand. "Your Majesty, you have conquered many species. You have won many wars, but you have never faced humanity. Not really. Today, you faced one retired soldier with a bad knee and no weapons, and he killed over 400 of your warriors." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Imagine what happens when you face our real soldiers. Young men and women who train every day for combat. Warriors who have not spent 8 years getting soft. Imagine facing millions of them. Billions of them. Imagine every single one of them refusing to surrender, refusing to stop, refusing to die until they have taken as many of your people with them as possible." Felt cold. For the first time in 300 years, she felt truly cold. "You think you can threaten me?" she asked, but her voice had lost its strength. "I am not threatening you, I am giving you information." Put the beacon back in his pocket. "The Empire is powerful, but power is not everything. You could conquer Earth. Maybe. After years of war and billions of deaths on both sides, but you would never hold it. We would fight you forever. Generation after generation, we would turn every planet you control into a battlefield. We would make your empire bleed until there was nothing left. All this from one species. From a species that learned to survive by being too stubborn to die. Finally showed something like emotion, a small, tired smile. We do not want war with you. We want peace. We want to trade and talk and learn from each other. But if you bring war to us, you need to understand what you are starting. Stood in silence. Around her, her guards waited. The colony waited. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Finally she spoke. What do you want? Leave this colony. Sign a peace treaty. Respect our borders. Straightened his broken body, ignoring the pain it must have caused. And remember that humans are not legends. We are much worse than that. What are you, then? His eyes met hers one last time. In them saw something ancient and dangerous. Something that had survived extinction events and ice ages and world wars. Something that would never, ever stop. We are survivors, he said simply, and the universe has not built anything yet that can make us quit. The Treaty of 442b was signed 3 days later. Queen sat across from human diplomats in a cold meeting room, her claws shaking slightly as she wrote her name on the document. The treaty was simple. The Empire would recognize human territory. Human ships could travel freely through space. There would be no war between the two species. In exchange, humanity offered trade and friendship. Accepted everything. She did not argue, she did not threaten. For the first time in her long reign, she wanted peace more than victory. When she returned to her throne world, her advisors were waiting with questions. How could she surrender to a species she had never even fought properly? How could the mighty empire bow to creatures they had called legends and lies just days before? Silenced them all with a single look. I did not surrender, she said quietly. I made a choice to let my empire survive. She spent the next several months studying humans, not the myths and stories, but the real history of their kind. She ordered her scientists to collect every piece of information they could find about Earth and its people. She read their books and watched their films. She studied their wars and their art, their science and their music. What she found amazed her. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves many times. They had built weapons that could burn their entire planet. They had fought wars that killed millions. They had polluted their air and water and driven countless species to extinction. By every measure, they should have been a failed species. A cautionary tale about the dangers of intelligence without wisdom. But they were still here, still growing, still reaching for the stars. Read about a battle called Thermopylae. 300 human warriors had stood against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway. They held the enemy long enough for others to escape, and then they died with their weapons in their hands. She read about a city called Stalingrad. Humans had fought other humans in frozen ruins for months. They had starved and frozen and bled. They had eaten rats and leather to survive. And they had won, not because they were stronger, but because they simply refused to lose. She read about a man named Das. He had gone to war but refused to carry a weapon because of his beliefs. Other soldiers had mocked him and beaten him. But when the fighting started, he had run into enemy fire again and again, carrying wounded soldiers to safety. He had saved 75 lives without ever hurting anyone. She read about mothers who lifted heavy objects to save their children, about soldiers who jumped on explosives to protect their friends, about ordinary people who ran into burning buildings to save strangers they had never met. Humans were violent and cruel, but they were also brave and kind. They could hate with terrible passion, but they could love with equal strength. They were contradictions wrapped in flesh, capable of the worst and the best the universe had ever seen. Began to understand why the galaxy feared them. Other species conquered because they had to. They fought for resources, for territory, for survival. When they won, they stopped fighting. When they lost, they surrendered. Humans conquered because they chose to. They fought for ideas, for beliefs, for people they would never meet. And they never stopped. Not when they were winning, not when they were losing, not when they were dying. They had some fire inside them that burned even when everything else was ashes. Called a meeting of her highest advisors. They gathered in the throne room, nervous and confused. The queen had been acting strangely since her return from the colony. She had canceled all military campaigns. She had opened trade negotiations with a dozen new species. She had even pardoned prisoners and reduced taxes on the outer worlds. Some whispered that she had gone soft. Some whispered that she was afraid. They were right about the fear, but they were wrong about what it meant. "I have made a decision about the future of our empire," announced. "We will continue to expand, but not through war. We will grow through trade and alliance. We will make friends instead of slaves." General stepped forward. "My queen, with respect, the empire was built on conquest. Our warriors are trained for battle. What will they do if we stop fighting?" "They will protect what we have. They will guard our borders and keep our people safe." Looked at her advisors one by one. "We have enough. 47 star systems, billions of citizens, wealth beyond measure. We do not need more. We need to keep what we have." "And the humans?" Was quiet for a moment. Then she activated the main display. Earth appeared, a tiny blue marble floating in the endless dark. Such a small world, such a fragile-looking thing. "We stay away from humans," she said firmly. "We do not provoke them. We do not insult them. We do not give them any reason to remember that they are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy." "You fear them that much?" "I respect them that much," turned to face her court. "I have conquered the weak. I have broken the proud. I have destroyed those who stood against me. But I have never faced a species like humans. They do not fight because they are built for war. They fight because they choose to be warriors every single day, despite everything telling them to stop." She walked slowly across the throne room, her footsteps echoing in the silence. "On 442B, I met a human warrior. He was old and tired. His body was broken and bleeding. He had every reason to surrender, to run, to give up and save himself." Stopped in front of the display, the blue light of Earth reflecting in her 4 eyes. "But he stood alone against my army because he had made a promise, and humans keep their promises." She turned back to her advisors. "Find me a new direction for our empire. Build trade routes. Make alliances. Create wealth instead of war. And remember this moment. Remember that the empire, conqueror of 47 systems, chose peace because one human taught us what true strength really means." In the silence that followed, no one argued. No one questioned. They had seen the footage from the colony. They had counted the dead. They knew that their queen had faced something that day that changed everything. Far away, on a small moon orbiting a gas giant, Sargent sat in a hospital bed. His arm was in a cast. His wounds were healing slowly. A young nurse checked his bandages with gentle claws, no longer afraid of the human who had saved her colony. "You are a hero," she said softly. "They will tell stories about you for generations." Smiled tiredly. "I am not a hero. I am just a stubborn old man who does not know when to quit." But the nurse knew better, and somewhere across the galaxy, a queen knew it too. Humans were not legends. They were something far more powerful. They were real. And the universe would never forget it.